I was going to say good morning. It's actually afternoon when I'm filming this, and probably afternoon when you're watching it. I had an idea for a video. I was just like sitting around thinking to myself, like, man, what are some tropes that I love that are like unusual? That are technically tropes, kind of. They're more just like plot points that I enjoy and have seen like not enough times. And then I was like, well, I have a few, but I don't know if I have enough to do a video all on its own. So then I asked my viewers, what are some lesser known tropes that you really like and you really want to see more of? And basically it's just an excuse for us to talk about what we want to see more of, but let's pretend that these are tropes, because even if they aren't, maybe they should be. The main thing is I didn't want you to give me your favorite tropes that are like, oh, I love enemies to lovers, oh, I love found family. I want tropes that are more obscure than that. So we're not looking for your favorites that everybody talks about all the time. We're looking for the weird niche stuff. We do the weird stuff. And boy, did I get my reply. So I will do my best. Some of these comments are rather long, so I may kind of summarize some of them or not read all of them, but I'll still try to get everybody's answers at least somewhat into this. Plus, I have written down my own in my handy dandy notebook, so I will intersperse yours with mine. And we can all see if we agree that we want to see more of these tropes. If these are your favorite lesser known tropes, comment below and let me know. But let's dive right in. Why don't I do a couple of mine and then I'll dive into yours and then we'll come back to some of mine. One of my favorites that I just don't see enough. Like, it used to be around a lot, but I don't see it very much anymore, at least in, like, the books that I read and the media that I consume, just sort of in general. And I'm open to this being not just bookish tropes. I'm open to it being TV tropes. I'm open to it being movies and video games and stuff like that. But one that I've not been seeing very much anymore and I miss is the I know you're in there trope, where some character gets, like, possessed or otherwise magically incapacitated and they're attacking their friend, and their friend is like, I know that you're in there. And they're able, through the power of friendship and loyalty and not giving up, to convince the brainwashed friend to like shake off their brainwashing. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. The next one on my list is I love a reluctant bodyguard. Bonus points if that bodyguard does not become a romantic interest. I love somebody who's like assigned to guard the main character, but doesn't particularly want to, but they will, and eventually they probably become friends or at least learn to respect the main character. And I'm fine too if it turns into a romance. I often prefer that it maybe doesn't. But I am a fan of bodyguard characters in general, and I do wish we saw more of them. I was really actually thinking about in my story Boots, which is over there so I can't reach it, Princess Joanna has her personal guard in Lyle, and while he's not reluctant, he is not a romantic interest, and he is loyal to the end. And I really like exploring the bodyguard and guardie, the guarded person. They're dynamic. It's really fun for me, and I want to see more of that. I have my tea here, almost all the way steeped probably, and I'm going to cover it in lipstick stains. I would like credit for not having rubbed off all my lipstick before I even started filming. I think that I deserve points for that. All right, let's get on to your comments. I love a trope where the main character is completely overpowered, but has one thing they are so bad at that they have no idea how awesome they are. Mob Psycho 100, One Punch Man. Is that Baki? I don't know. These are animes. The Rock, My Dress Up Darling, etc. I only recognize some of those because I'm not actually an anime girly. But, and part of it might be that I don't particularly like overpowered main characters, and anime does have quite a few of those. I'm not seeing any of these shows, so I'm not saying that I couldn't like them. I just think it's kind of unlikely that I would. But it would be interesting to see more of the type of characters like this in books who are overpowered but have like one big weakness, so it's not just like they win all the time. But this person also says, on the flip side of that, I also love a trope if the character is so completely full of themselves that they march through the world with blind confidence that renders them impervious to harm, even when they are actually not that strong. And then bonus points if this character is a mentor / close friend to the protagonist, so that their brashness pushes the main character out of their comfort zone to grow as a person. I'm not super familiar with that trope. I can't think of anything that I've seen or played or read with that specific trope, but I suspect it may be an anime trope. So I don't know if I like it or not, but you want to see more of it, so I hope you get to. Next we have, I don't know what it's called, but the one where characters retell the exact same events from their point of view, it's often an excuse for actors to mess around, but I've also seen it in comics. You kind of need a visual medium TBH. Sometimes the dialogue is exactly the same, but the context and delivery is worlds apart. You can see the narrator making them seem better than they are and how they see the characters around them. It's great fun. I do enjoy that. I also love an unreliable narrator in something like a video game or something. In Dragon Age 2, because everything's about Dragon Age with me, Varric is kind of telling the story of the game, and there's several sequences, well, not several, but there's a couple sequences where Varric embellishes and makes either himself the hero or Hawk like a real total badass because he's telling the story and he's building it up. And I do like that. I don't know about the necessarily two different characters telling the same story, although that can be fun too. I think that's a fun like way to mess with it versus unreliable narrators in books. Bit hit or miss, but in a visual medium, I quite enjoy it. And also, I do think I enjoy when characters are like telling the same story. I think you could do it in a book, but you really have to have the skills to make it clear how different their stories are, even if they're very similar on the surface. This person says, I'll go for a non-literary one I'd like to see in prose. Okay, so we've mostly been doing non-literary, but this person says they want to see it in a book. The Kaizo, I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Kaizo trap. Originating in games, it's a trick where seemingly victory is turned into defeat. The trope gets its name from a Mario hack that kills you in the victory screen if you are not careful. I'd like to see more loss in general, but a well-executed Kaizo is a knife to the gut and makes it hurt beautifully. I think there's room for this in fiction writing. I'll have to look that up and like research it more to find out exactly what happens, because like a lot of times in fiction writing, that would kind of just be like, you got your main character to the end and then killed them and there's no happy ending. And unfortunately, there's not a ton of fiction that supports that. I'm not saying there wouldn't be a story that would support that. There are no absolute rules, but there's a lot of things that we very much expect in fiction. And I don't know enough about it. Like, because I remember when I was a kid, there would be video games where you get to like a no-win scenario where you were supposed to lose. Like the boss would just be kicking your ass and be like, how am I supposed to beat this guy? I don't know what to do. And then you'd lose, and then your character would like wake up in an inn, and that would be part of the story. And you really don't see that in video games anymore, at least not the kind that I play. So like if it's something like that, I would like to see more of that, where the main character gets trounced so completely that the reader's going, how does the book keep going past this? You know, that I would love to see. So I'm not sure like if that's what this means, but yeah. All right, this person's favorite lesser-known tropes, and then I'm going to do a few more of mine. Scary/intimidating character who's actually cinnamon roll. Love that one. That one's pretty common, so it's not necessarily a lesser-known trope, but I still love it. Character who believe they only exist for the service of others, gaining friends who push them to develop their own identity. That's cute. That's a cute one. Nightmare sequences, my beloved, especially when creative imagery is used. I like a good nightmare sequence. I don't like them to be overdone, but I have been known to employ a nightmare sequence myself, so I would be a big old hypocrite if I said I didn't enjoy them when they're done not too often. Oh, I am going to throw in one of my own here to bounce off of that too that I forgot to write down. That is comfort after someone has a bad dream, especially if that leads the characters into learning more about each other. Like not just the comforting, but like, hey, you were having a bad dream about X part of your life. You want to tell me about it? And then that character opens up about that part of their life that they've been hiding. Mwah, 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 mwah. Chef's kisses all around. I love it. And finally, dragons functioning as part of society, like breathing fire to light a cooking pot or something. That's cool. Like we don't see enough dragons that are just vibing. Dragons that are just animals. You know, your pet dragon, whatever. Everybody's riding around on dragons, doing warfare, and we do not see enough just dragons in people's lives. All right, I'm going to do one more of yours, and then I'll go back to mine, because I feel like I kind of cheated on that last one and added one of my own. Enemies to lovers, question mark? Which we all know is the overdone one, but this person adds to it, try lovers to enemies or friends to enemies. I love seeing two people who care about each other or were in the same side just slowly become different and start clashing. It just brings up such raw emotions, and it does make situations gray. Very often both sides did something or one side is going through something. So I don't know if I like it or not. I know in my own writing, I tend to make people stay friends because my own personal taste is like, I want you to stay friends. And while I don't think I would personally enjoy that trope very much, I think it would make me extremely stressed out. And not in a fun, this person wants to be stressed out, but like in a good way. I think that's the wrong kind of stress for me. I need to avoid that trope if it ever becomes popular. But I'm totally here to support other people who want to see that trope. You probably won't be seeing that one from me though. So if you're looking for that trope in my writing, like, definitely we can have conflicts and the friends can have disagreements, but there's probably never going to be, like, lovers to enemies or friends to enemies in my book specifically.
I say that, but in the fantasy book that I'm writing right now, The Hearthkeeper's War, there is a planned friend betrayal coming up toward the end of the book. Now, will it stay a friend betrayal in the next book? Who knows? But I mean, perhaps this viewer would like The Hearthkeeper's War because there are friends who become enemies.
All right, let's get on to some of mine. Here's one that I absolutely love and I don't see enough, and that is a chosen group rather than a chosen one. Bonus points if they all have titles and specific roles to fill, like the healer, the warrior, the scout, or whatever, and they have to figure out which slot they fall into, and it's like a chosen team instead of a chosen one. I friggin' love it. And then they can be wrong about which slot they fill, and then they figure out which niche they actually belong in, and it feels right, and it's like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. And actually, I do that trope, because I couldn't resist it in my novella Second Floor. So if you're interested, this one. The next trope that I enjoy, I don't know, it's kind of cheating, but I read a decent number of fantasy books and I am craving a good old-fashioned quest. Not a MacGuffin hunt, like in Lightlark, where it's just like, oh, we need an item that's going to solve all of our problems, so let's go on an adventure to find it. We found it, and we've solved all of our problems. That's not what I'm looking for. I want a quest. But I want, like, a lot of the older fantasy books used to have quests, and we're just not doing that so much anymore, and I'm just not a big fan of a lot of those older fantasy books. So I want more quests from more modern authors. Don't suggest Brandon Sanderson to me, please. I've already talked about that in another video. I just don't think I'm going to like his style, and I'm afraid of his fans. If I ever read Brandon Sanderson, it's going to be in secret, because I'm terrified that if I don't like it, the fans are going to murder me in my sleep. I'm going to wake up, and there's going to be Brandon Sanderson fans standing over my bed with baseball bats. But, like, I don't know. T. Kingfisher, write me more quests. I look to her for some fun fantasy with good quests, so I need more of that, please. Bonus points, a million bonus points, if the quest is being done by a group of oddballs. Like I said, T. Kingfisher came to mind, like old ladies, demon-possessed chickens, maybe a goat. Like, I want a weird questing party, not just like the standard one. And let's get some questing action going on. And one more from me, and then I'll go back to you guys, and that would be an animal companion that does not talk. I want my animal companion to be an animal. Not a talking animal, although I do have a fondness for those sometimes too. But it's a little bit too overdone. I want the animal to not talk. It's just a cat, it's just a dog, it's just a goat. Now, I'm fine with being a little bit more intelligent than a cat, a dog, a goat would be, for the plot. But I don't want it to talk. I love animals in stories, but, like, I swear, so many of them sound the same. And it's like, just shut up. Just be a sassy little cat without talking. All right, let's go back to yours. Oh, this is perfect because this person kind of disagrees with me a little bit. They say, I'm not sure if these are niche or just not in the spotlight very much. But the first one is bonded animal companions, especially when it's telepathic. Sometimes translated if they can only communicate through shared senses or something. I'm about the shared senses. I really like that. There's a couple of books that I've read where the dragon can share, like, images. So, like, I like that kind of thing, but the telepathic, like, just talking, that bumps into my previous commentary for me. Then they say, when someone pretends to be someone else to carry on their memory as an act of deep mourning and low self-esteem / worth, or, like, political or revolutionary causes too. I don't know if this person is familiar with the Dragon Age games, but Blackwall in Dragon Age Inquisition might be the character for you. I will spoil no further, but I'm just saying the vibes might be there for ya. Their last one is, someone doing terrible things to bring about a perfect world is self-aware enough to know that there's no place in heaven for them. They take on the sins and crimes so someone else doesn't have to bloody their hands. Interesting. I don't see that one very much, but that's an interesting one for sure. This person says, I love miscommunication and misunderstanding. Oh no, not me. No, I don't. I love when characters have a reputation of being a bad person and they end up being good internally. I mean, I kind of like that one, if it's done well, if it's done right. See, for me, miscommunication and misunderstanding, I actually am fine with it, honestly, if it's done well. It's just so often used as a lazy crutch to create conflict when two characters who would totally solve this problem by talking to each other just refuse to talk to each other because the plot said so. I get it for two characters who don't have good communication, like especially like say villains, or it's like say the hero and the villain or something, a misunderstanding between them. Normal. A misunderstanding between two characters who love each other and have thus far been pretty good at communicating because they just won't talk to each other? Stupid. I hate it. Lazy. Lazy, lazy, lazy. So for me, it's not the miscommunication and the misunderstanding that's the problem. It's when it's done badly, and it's done badly a lot. It just makes me think of, like, let's say Adam started acting weird. I just go ask him why. I just go up to him and be like, hey, I noticed you've been acting like this. Is anything wrong? Is something different? Like, do we need to talk about it? Are you okay? That's what characters would be doing most of the time. They just refuse to for the convenience of the miscommunication. They also say, I love when characters realize that they're in love only after the person they love has died, preferably long after their death. I love stories with quiet moments where the pacing slows down and you get to see the characters do mundane things. Depending on how mundane, I agree with you. It makes me understand what's at stake and also makes them endearing. That's why so many stories start out with just kind of watching the characters go about their life and seeing what their ordinary life looks like. And then it hurts all the more when that gets just ripped away from them. Not every scene in the story needs to be fast-paced and hold your attention 24/7. That gets suffocating. They also say, I'm a sucker for an ancient civilization with advanced technology that has been hidden for a long time. And not a trope per se, but I like fantasy mixed with horror mystery. It's such a banger. I do need more like fantasy horror mashups or fantasy thriller mashups. Like, I do need more of it. This person says, I love a story with a secret at the heart of the world that turns out to upend everyone's foundational assumptions or open up a wider conflict more sinister than the characters could ever have imagined. So that's like finding out some big fundamental thing about their world that they thought was like a constant is probably not true or something like that. I'd love to see more of that too, honestly. That sounds pretty cool. Nigel's here. He's going to yell about it. He has favorite tropes too, but unfortunately I don't know what they are because he in fact doesn't speak English, and honestly it'd probably be easier if he could. So I dislike the very thing that could make my life easier as a pet owner. Anyway, back to these. This person says, I want all the details throughout the training montage. They want school settings where they actually go to class or a mentor who actually explains the thing.
So I kind of gloss over the mentor thing, but I'm going to put it here. This also goes with miscommunications. I hate mentor characters who keep stuff from the character that they're teaching for no reason, just for the plot, just so we have something to reveal later, when you're supposed to be teaching this person. So teach them well, teach them right. Don't leave out details so they fail. Just give them all the information.
They also say, this is my Harvest Moon / Little House obsessed childhood talking, but I love a farm setting, fantasy farming especially. Well, if you have not read, and you probably have, not read that Beware of Chicken book that I mentioned before, you might like it, because it's fantasy farming. But yes, to the first one, I do think that if you're going to have like a magical school or a magical training or training of any kind, hi buddy, in your book, you should get to see some of it. I hate it when characters go to like a magical school and we never actually see their class. Or if we do, it's just so we can see them interact with the other kids in the class and not so we can see what the magic class is actually like. Now, we do not often invoke the name of the terrible wizard lady, but one thing I will say for those books is that you did get to see some of the classes, and I did like that. You can like things about books with problematic authors, but still not support those authors. And that was one thing that I will give her, is that I liked that she showed the classes actually happening. This person says the chosen one versus the one who was chosen. Or when the person who has trained their whole life to achieve and become a thing has it snatched from them by some guy who just happened to be there. Not my favorite personally, but hey. But I think that's just because I fundamentally don't like people who are like arbitrarily chosen by fate or the gods or something. And that's one of those situations. Like, oh, I've trained my whole life for this. And Jim Bob over there actually turns out to be the chosen one, not me. Because Jim Bob was just innately special. The universe picked him. And that's one of my least favorite things. But that's not to say that you can't enjoy it, obviously. This one is tasked with mentoring a child of someone you hate is something that lives in my core. I love it every time I see it, except for the Bigot Wizard book. I mean, the Bigot Wizard book could have done a way better job. Way back before we found out how bigoted the author of those books actually is, I had been thinking of doing a video that was like how I would have improved Snape, and I had a lot of notes about the idea of him having to mentor the child of his bully and like what we could have actually done with that instead of just having him be like a one-note jackass. And any Harry Potter fans in the comments, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it how actually he was super deep. Go read those books again. Just read them with the words that are on the page. Stop putting in your own headcanons or your own fan fictions. Wasn't well done. And now we're going to stop talking about those books. They also say revenge plots that fall apart because the main character learned that revenge would not satisfy them is something I treasure, especially in all caps, when the answer isn't forgiveness. All right, I'm going to do a couple more of mine. One thing that I love, and I know there's a name for it, but I couldn't think of it, so I'm just calling it like mirroring, is when the ending of the book mirrors the beginning. They have something in common. They are in concert. So either a character begins in one place and ends up back in that place at the end, or a theme from the beginning comes up at the end. Whatever it is, I love it when we come full circle. Maybe it's just called coming full circle. I love that. Another favorite of mine is the smarmy guy with hidden depth. So I want a dude who's just kind of like a jackass, but not so much like that he's a horrible bully. I just want him to be kind of smarmy, like kind of sassy, a little bit cunty, you know? But he turns out that he has hidden depth. Everybody dismisses him because of his like outward personality, but it turns out that's all a cover and actually he's very cool, disagreeable in a very specific way. You usually see this guy in fantasy books. He's usually like the courtier or something who wears really nice clothes and has a lot of sassy opinions about people, but then you find out that he's like actually very skilled and thoughtful and intelligent. He just doesn't show it. And the next one, I got a couple of spooky ones in a row because it's spooky season when I'm filming this. Ghosts that can be reasoned with. I am kind of over those horror books where there's a ghost and it's terrorizing people for whatever reason and like it's just blanketly angry and evil all the time. There's nothing human left to it. It just wants revenge or something. And if you are unlucky enough to fall into its path, you get to be revenged upon, even if you had nothing to do with the bad things that happened to it. I still love a ghost where you can figure out what happened and help the ghost move on, or speak to the ghost or reason with the ghost, rather than the ghost just being like this inscrutable agent of evil and chaos. All right, back to yours. This person says, I love when a prophecy turns out to be a clever twist on reader expectations or self-fulfilling through ironic efforts to negate it. For example, I rewatched the last David Tennant Doctor Who episode recently where he is told that he will die and he will knock 4 times. Try not to give spoilers to that episode, but I know what you're talking about. And I'm not as big of a fan of self-fulfilling prophecies myself, but that's okay. I hope you get to see more of it. I hope everybody here who has shared their tropes gets their wish and gets to see more of these tropes that they are loving. This person says, I love a good healing arc, whether physically or emotionally. So that's kind of hurt comfort, although perhaps an arc, so it would be lengthened out, not just like one scene where the character is injured. The MC is injured somehow and slowly becomes better. A mini version of this is the restful pause where the squad gets to take showers and sleep and eat good food before continuing on the adventure. So I've often talked about this in stories. They need flowing action and rest beats, and these can be some great rest moments. Rest moments are very useful because they can still move the plot along without action, and also rest moments are a really great way to let us get to know the characters better, because you can't just have a rest moment to have one. You should try to at least do something with the characters, but these are great times for characters to take care of each other, to show other sides of themselves that maybe we didn't get to see, to show hidden talents or hobbies. Remember, I've talked about giving a character a contradictory hobby. So like if you've got a big guy and all we've seen him do so far is chop up people with his axe, but then we get to camp and he's knitting, that's getting to know the character more, and rest moments are perfect for that. This person just says, I like stories about people going undercover using disguises, magic, or technology to infiltrate the enemy. This person says, this one's a bit specific, but it's the first one that came to me when a character is put into a false ideal reality, dream, pocket dimension, etc., where they have everything they could possibly want. Maybe some dead characters alive again, and their romantic life is perfect, and they have their dream job, but then they have to give it up and return to reality, either to save the world or just to realize that the real thing is always better. I am also kind of fond of that one. That's a fun niche one for sure. They say it also works if they have to turn back time to before they got everything and make a different choice that sacrifices a lot. This person says, I feel like it's niche, though why shouldn't it be? I did very specifically ask you for niche tropes, so you're on the right track with that. It's like such an obvious thing, but sometimes it's difficult to find in media. A protective female character fiercely protecting the male character, and she's actually stronger than him, and he doesn't feel emasculated and is strong in his own right. Whether that be strength of intelligence, whether that be strength of arms, whatever it is, I agree. Let women characters protect male characters without the men getting insulted or emasculated, without the reader thinking, oh, he's less of a man because he let her protect him. And let women be stronger than men sometimes. Not every man is automatically stronger than every woman, okay? Like, that's just demonstrably true. Is that there are lots of women who are stronger than lots of men. That's a whole part of our world that we are ignoring in so many of our stories. They also say, I love when a prophecy is fake and used for nefarious purposes. This person says that they would like to see more men or masculine characters being magical healers or the barrier maiden archetypes. That would be cool. You will probably enjoy Adventurer Mage 3 when it comes out then. No spoilers, but just saying. Actually, you might even like Adventure Mage 2 for one of the characters in it, because you want to say, I mean a man using what is traditionally considered passive or defensive magic without automatically turning it offensive. So, they also say, I really love prickly, unpleasant, horrible characters, learning to open up and trust a bit. Oh, we all love those. That one's a little bit more common, but I'll still allow it. Without completely overwriting their original personality. Yes, that's true. I don't want them to just suddenly become somebody else. I also love the idea of a super powerful eldritch abomination type creature being small and cute, preferably willingly, but it's not always. It's still absolutely terrifying. Better yet, when the creature's a friend of someone who knows exactly what they are, and close enough with them to treat them more like the little beastie than the horror. There's a creature in one of the Star Trek Lower Decks episodes. I think it's either Mipsy or Moopsy. I think it's Moopsy.
Moopsy.
Hmm? Oh, the Moopsy is free!
Who is this tiny little blob, white blob with little feet, but it eats bones out of your body while you're still alive. I'm pretty sure is what it does. Anyways, horrifying, and I love it. And I have a stuffed animal of it, which I would go get to show you if Nigel had not just settled down to lay on my lap. This person also wants to see more lovers to enemies. I don't know if I've seen it anywhere enough to call it a trope, but we are calling for it to be a trope. I keep hearing that people are like, let this be a trope. Not one that I particularly want, but a lot of people do seem to want it. So if you're sitting out here planning to write your book or your TV show or something like that, and you're like, I want something that's not being done. I want to do something more original feeling. Apparently lovers to enemies is the way to go. Person says, I have an angsty one when character A loves or is protecting character B, but B has no idea. They're deliberately concealing their identity/knowledge. There's probably a thing where A gets injured, or either indirectly or directly by B, and then B finds out who A is, and / how they really feel, and then B feels absolutely awful and rushes to protect / help A. There's a lot of A's and B's in there, but I read it for you and I hope it makes sense. Yeah, like protecting somebody without the other person knowing is always a fun trope. This person says, Bash Brothers, or even more obscure, the variation in which it's the guy and the girl who are so coordinated and in sync during battle, bonus points if they do not end up as romantic partners. Always love to see it. Always love to see it. I love to see any two characters be extremely coordinated in battle, so much so that it almost seems like they're reading each other's minds. Fun fact, in the silly LARP that I do, although I don't do it as much anymore, and my brother doesn't either, but when my brother and I used to play it together, that was basically us. We would get out there, and if we were teamed up together, we never needed to communicate verbally. We basically read each other's minds, and we set each other up for good shots and all of that good stuff. And that's the drift is real. Now, being siblings and having grown up together and only being a year apart helps a lot, but I'm here for it for whatever characters can achieve it.
By the way, if you like the dynamic of really close siblings who basically read each other's minds in battle, I recommend Vex and Vax from the show Vox Machina.
The next thing they say is beware the nice ones. When the calm, polite character you've known the entire thing goes absolutely wild when pushed or forced into a confrontation. Love it. Want to see more of it. And finally, the prophecy twist. Prophecies are especially fun when the characters think they have it figured out and it is subverted. So a lot of people also craving to see some subverted prophecies. This person says, I love exploring the in-depth fantasy creatures. What's their family structure? How do they provide food? How do they deal with environmental threats? Think Bambi or The Land Before Time, but fantasy. I mean, The Land Before Time isn't too much about how the creatures go about their lives, but yes, I would love to see more fantasy creatures and how do they actually work within their environment, and how, what are their day-to-day lives like? And this person says, I think it's niche. Again, we're here for the niche. That's what we're doing today. But I like when there's a legend or a myth and one of the characters knew the real person. So so-and-so knew the hero of old, for real. All right, let's do a couple more of mine. Again, this one's also spooky because I was thinking about spooky things. I've only seen this a couple of times, but I really like the idea. And that is ghosts who need your blood. Not like vampires, they don't come suck on your neck or anything, but to maintain themselves and to maintain their connection to a person, they need to consume some of that person's blood, although it could also be hair, fingernails, teeth, whatever. They need to consume some part of that person to maintain themselves. And I really like that idea. Here's another one that I love and I want to see more of. Main character gets taken down a peg, learns that they're not as cool as they thought they were. I love it. I love it. I love it. The main character thinks they finally figured it out. They've got it all together. They've mastered the magic spells. And then they find that they're actually just a novice wizard compared to what most of the wizards actually are, and they just hadn't encountered real wizards yet. I love it so much. When you got a main character who finally thinks yes, I have mastered this, and then they find out very quickly that, oh no, they have barely scratched the surface. I'd also like to see more main characters who actually feel bad about hurting or killing people. So many of these main characters are so badass that they don't have a single emotion when they have to end someone's life. They'll look someone in the face and stab them, a very personal act, to look in someone's eyes and stab them, and then they'll brush it off like it's just a Tuesday. I want a character who actually feels bad, even if they have to do it. I want them to feel like they have to do it. Not they're just doing it because that's what we do in a story, but it's the only way to survive is to kill this guy, and I don't want to. More main characters like that. All right, more of yours, and then I'll do the last of mine. Hopefully I'm getting to them. You guys really came through the comments. This is going to be a long video. This person says, I like the fake history one, where one finds out the records of the fundamental events were intentionally tampered with by the bad guys to change history. That can be fun when done well. I've also seen it done very poorly, but that's because I've read Fourth Wing. This person says, I like when a main character, or at least not the villain, ends up in a situation where they have to choose between two equally bad things. It happens a number of times in games like Mass Effect and King's Quest, are two I can think of right now, but not enough in books. I like when character choices have consequences that matter throughout the story, or when little things seem insignificant at first, but later turn out to be really important. Those I don't even think are just tropes. Those are good story qualities that more books should just have in general. And we need to remember that those are tools in our toolbox as authors. This person says, people meeting again in the afterlife. Also hurt comfort, but especially taking care of someone when they're sick. So again, hurt comfort's a pretty normal one, but getting to see people meet in the afterlife is sweet, and I don't think we get to see that enough. This one says they love the unreliable narrator done right. While unreliable narrator is a fairly common trope, I'm gonna give it to you for this one because done right is a lot harder to find. This person says they don't know how popular or uncommon it is, but they love a good time loop. I would caveat that by saying time loop done right, because I've seen some ones that were not. But I too can be a fan of a properly done time loop. This next person says, maybe it isn't a trope, but I like not everyone is in love with the main character stories. Like, I get it, she's hot and she doesn't know it. She's the most kind, the most caring, the most self-sacrificing, the most gag. But it's unrealistic, and I think everyone's type, and I don't think everyone's type is the same. To quote Heath Ledger, what is with this chick? She have beer-flavored nipples? So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a trope, but it's a thing we need to see more of, because we have been going deeper into this trend where authors are afraid to let their female main characters like be flawed and not be desired by everybody. We can't find a middle ground. We don't seem to think one exists. We went from, she's the nerdy one who no one else likes except him and only he can see her true beauty, to everyone thinks she's hot and everyone wants to jump her bones and the villain is praising her left, right, and center. Like, there's a middle. Can we find the middle? They also like to read about close platonic friendships between male and female characters that don't develop into love. Wow. I mean, I assume you've read Adventurer Mage, but if not, boy, have I got a book series for you. They want to see women with swords, not just bows or daggers. Again, my books, not necessarily Adventurer Mage, although Maeve uses a gun sometimes, but in The Wolf and the Hawk, which is up behind me, Rayoni, the lead character, uses a giant battle axe. And in the fantasy story that I'm drafting right now, the Hearthkeeper's War, the main character is going to use a variety of interesting and unusual items that we normally don't get to see any main characters using, let alone female main characters. This person also says, strong female characters who are confident in their femininity and also soft. Not necessarily warrior women, but women who are unashamedly themselves, comfortable in their skins, and have an inner strength that radiates. I mean, I don't know if Maeve completely counts, but she doesn't not count either. I'm just going to keep bringing my book back here. I'm going to assume you've read it, because this is kind of probably your cup of tea by the sound of it. This person says, I love when the villain/antagonist is right about something and the hero can't logic their way out of seeing their point of view, especially when it's written well, because it's easy to give the villain a good point, but having the persuasion to make the hero doubt themselves moving forward is great. This person says, not enemies to lovers, enemies to besties. Two people who are fighting tooth and nail, getting jabs in at each other's expense, just absolute cats and dogs. And then they get closer because of the story, force them into an adventure, blah, blah, blah. Then they slowly start to see each other's perspective until they are absolutely inseparable. Bonus points if one calls the other some snarky nickname at the beginning and uses it as a term of endearment at the end of their arc. So basically like enemies to lovers, except for they don't become lovers. The next one is kind of sad but doomed. Siblings/friendships, etc. gets me every time. Just two people who love each other so deeply, but their story, relationship, or even their lives can never end happily for all of them if things remain the same and they are together, either due to different wants and needs, different morals, or one of the character's actions. So again, this is probably not one you're gonna see from me, because that sort of thing stresses me out too much, but that's not to say that you can't enjoy it in other stories. Not sure if this is niche enough. Secret heir royalty identity. I haven't seen it as much these days. It used to be really big. It used to be everywhere, in fantasy especially. I just love me a character with a secret part of themselves that they opt to hide for any reason. A lot of times nowadays, they're not opting to hide it. They have just had their memory wiped in some way and they have no idea that they're the special. And finally, not sure if this even counts as a trope. Nature, specifically forests, being alive, like moving trees that respond to people, plants with minds of their own, a cursed garden, a shifting hedge maze. Yes, please. Horror or fantasy plants that move, react to people and the world around them, and are often a metaphor for something else are very fun to me. Somebody seconds the doomed siblings. I don't know if I've seen many things that have doomed siblings in them. It's an interesting one. This next one is, I'm a sucker for the monster hunter becomes the monster they were hunting. Trope as both a villainous arc and a heroic arc. It's such a juicy, knife-twisty way to explore the themes of prejudice, cycles of violence, identity, and what it means to be human. Frankenstein, is that you? The next one is Why Choose? That eventually ends up in one couple, but the twist is that the L.I., the main character, has... I can't tell if there's a missing word or if I'm just too dyslexic. The twist is all L.I., the main character, has choose from are the same person broken. Okay, so they like the why choose, but actually it's just all one person with like broken up into different people. I don't know if that happens, like that feels like maybe it happens in anime. It feels like an anime thing that maybe sometimes happens. That one's a bit thorny for me because it's a little bit like, are we treading into DID territory? And like there's some toxic ideas about that and about like falling in love with people's different like personalities, but that's not how that actually works. But I'd have to see it to know if like it actually has that issue. It's a little bit weird to me. Like, I said it before and I'll say it again. It doesn't really matter if I like it because we're just here to share all of the tropes. This person says they like a setting that is secretly post-apocalyptic when the world seems to be a fairly standard fantasy world, but you find out later down the road that either it's post-apocalyptic Earth or just the fantasy world itself has been fairly advanced at one point, but something knocked it back and they had to redevelop. So if you have not read Wheel of Time, you might want to check that series out. If you like, especially if you can tolerate an old, chunky, sort of old school fantasy.
If you're a gamer and don't mind a cozy, I also recommend the My Time games, so My Time at Portia and My Time at Sandrock. Both of these take place in a world that is basically what you were describing, where there's a lot to do with the past world and finding out more clues and more technology left by the past. And there's a whole like storyline of the religion versus the people who are seeking the technology. And it's really interesting. So if you like a cozy game and a crafting game, you might like the My Time games.
The next one is, they love the trope of always a bigger fish when one threatening creature ends up running into an even more threatening creature. They like starfish aliens. I want aliens that actually look alien, not humans with some weird bumps on their foreheads. There's some pretty alien aliens in Mass Effect. Some of them do kind of just look like weird humans, but then you've got like some real weird ones, like the jellyfish guys. I forget what they're called. Is it the Hanar? No, the Hanar are the jellyfish guys. Yeah, there's some cool ones. Seinfeldian conversations, especially between sci-fi characters. I started dating this new girl, but she holds her laser gun in her left hand. Crossovers, yeah, shove that chocolate right in the peanut butter. When a protag has feelings for other characters but doesn't end up with them at the end. I honestly think we should see more of that. It's let your characters have crushes on people that they don't end up with. Like, crushes on people that you don't end up with are like such a normal part of our lives. I think we should see that more in fiction, honestly. When the reader expects the character to be bigoted, but they aren't, that's always a fun one. It kind of goes along with my smarmy character actually turns out to have depth. Like, you might expect that character to be kind of bigoted, and then it turns out that they're not. Larger than life, charismatic animals that don't push the limits of feasibility, think dinosaurs, and some alien creatures, and then when large herbivores are treated as aggressive and dangerous instead of gentle giants. Yeah, I mean, I love to hang out with large herbivores, and even if they like you, they're still dangerous. That's still dangerous. Next, this person says, two characters who are not a couple yet, trying to avoid suspicion, detection, pursuers, and one of them pulls the other into a kiss. Cheesy, yes, but it has me kicking my feet and giggling. That one's a pretty common one, so I don't know if that necessarily belongs in our niche tropes video, but one I thought was done exceptionally well was from Paladin's Grace, if you haven't read that book yet. That one, like, I normally kind of grimace at this trope and cringe at it, but that one was done well. I really like that one. I won't tell you more. You should just go check it out. Platonic relationships so intimate it blurs the line between platonic and romantic. Let me just bring this back over here. Just set that back down. Character learning about prophecy, fate, vision, and trying to prevent it, causing it to occur. Okay, we've seen that one. Apparently people are really craving that one. And a villain that reflects, embodies what the hero could become if they'd made different decisions. Another person craving friends to enemies. People really want people to not get along in their books. Maybe we're just too tired of books developing one way where people become better friends or become lovers. We're just like, we want to see the reverse. I still think I would hate it, but it seems like people are craving it. Although this one that they add on is really niche and I like it. The MC tries to save the other person, whether literally or like save them from the darkness. And the other person would rather die than take help / trust the MC. Yeah, I would love to see more of that. Like, I've seen it a few times and I want more. All right, we're almost to the end. Wow, I did not expect this video to be this long. You guys really came through with the answers, man. You really want to see some of these niche tropes. I like it when a group of characters have a light or whimsical moment, even if it's just them sitting around and laughing. Favorite example is from the book series The Expanse, which takes place in space. The characters are running away in their spacesuits in zero gravity, and it describes some of them tripping, some of them gracefully floating around in the air. Pretty whimsical in what's a gritty series. Yeah, don't forget those little moments. Be within the scene. I know it can be a struggle for some of us who don't visualize things, but as much as possible, you want to be within the scene and think about things that could happen in the scene. Not necessarily that move the plot, that are okay, we're all in space and we're in our spacesuits, but maybe some of us suck at it. Who would suck at it? What does that look like? Just really try to get into your characters and your world that deeply. This person says, Chosen One villains. I effing love giving the baddie too much power. Next one is, I love a fallen hero, aka Anakin Skywalker. In the pursuit of goodness, the good guys push their hero too far and break them / corrupt them / force them to turn away. Not one that I particularly love, but hey, maybe we need to see more of it. And then we've got a last one, and then I'll go do my last few, and then whew, we've gotten through this video. That's a lot. That's a lot, guys. I've discovered I like stories where the big scary man is forced to be accompanied by a child or younger character, like in Game of Thrones or The Last of Us. I mean, there's also The Mandalorian. We love gruff man has to escort child. I wouldn't even call that one a niche trope anymore. That's we have fully embraced that. We need more gruff woman has to escort child. I would love to see more of that as well. Although you do fall into that thorny idea of women are meant to be nurturing. But if it's done right, I think it could still be okay. Just as long as you don't let her devolve into just suddenly she's totally a mom and has forgotten how to be a badass, I think that trope could work with gruff woman as well. But in general, they also say that they just want to see a lot more people caring about their family and loved ones without it having to have romantic connotations. And I totally agree. Let your characters care about each other on deep fundamental levels without it having to be romantic. We are way too obsessed with romantic love as the be-all and end-all most important and most powerful type of love, when it is not. All right, but let's get to my last few, and then we will end this video, but feel free to leave more in the comments below. My next one is, I love the grumpy sunshine specifically, and this might not be super niche anymore, when she's grumpy and he's the sunshine. May I once again point you toward Adventurer Mage. Yeah, I want to see him be the sunshine one. Let the women be grumpy, okay? Let us be grumpy. And possibly it's because I am the grumpy and my husband is the sunshine in our relationship, so I need to see more of it. And finally, I want to see more happy, established couples who do not break up or die. 1,000 bonus points if they're queer. Just stop it. Stop. Every time I see a happy couple in anything, I'm like, well, one of them's going to be dead by the end. And if they're gay, 100% one of them's going to be dead by the end. We can't help ourselves, apparently. So, just let an established couple be happy and survive. I get it if it's the main couple, that's kind of hard to work with, but I am here for a side couple who are a major part of the story. And they are just there to be this amazing power couple together. And yes, they can still have disagreements and stuff like that. But let's just not have them break up and not die, for the love of God. And even if they're not married, I've got several books that I enjoy where there is just this awesome duo who are badass together. I'm thinking of the Becca Cooper series with the two guardsmen who she trains under. I can't remember their names right now. But they are a man-woman duo, and they are just partners to the end. Now, spoilers, it does end in the way that I don't particularly like, but through most of the books, their duo is just so wonderful, and they're to be mentors to the main character, and I need more of it, please. But also, I have written it, so if you're looking for a duo that won't break up or one of them die, spoilers, I'm not going to kill off Maeve or Valentine. I know that you're probably shocked to hear that. I'm not going to do that. But check out my Adventurer Mage series. There may even be other books eventually coming. So it's a planned 3-book series right now, but that doesn't mean there won't be more. So if you're looking for your power couple, platonic power couple that don't break up and one of them doesn't die, the Adventurer Mage series. I also have a pretty strong married couple in Second Floor. You don't get to see a lot of their marriage, but you do see a little bit of it, so check it out. But anyway, that's enough of that. I am going to stop recording before I have an audio error or something happens. So I've been recording for a while. And I'm going to reheat my tea, and then I'm going to go probably do some read along. So thank you so much for watching. Obviously, I've advertised my books a million billion times, so you already know about that. I also have a Patreon where you can help me self-publish my own books, as well as get exclusive content never seen here on the regular channel. Or if you want to get that exclusive content, but you don't want to deal with Patreon, you can become a channel member. But that's all from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
Why are you looking at me like that? Because you gotta kiss a klepto?
I'm not a klepto.
Then what? Cut it out! What?
She probably just wants to know about my patrons. Patrons like Sharka OC.
Pachinko. And I'm gonna take a stab at this one. Please tell me how to pronounce this correctly. Heike? Heike? Please let me know.
Airy 925, Indigo Marmot, Adriana, Laura, Wanda, Choco Tina, Clara, Lisa, Jen, Tex, Moon Island, Zenith, Ashley Bunnet, Nemo, Tactical Hot Dog, Haley History Nerd, Pixelizzy, Raya, Christina, Cameron, Lady Kragan, Lunar Muse, AJ, Marshy, Semidark, GK, Scout, Annika, Jen, Tina, Laknanga, SB Boots, Martha Baggins, July, Bird Anonymous, Sarah, Cat, 78 kilograms of shade, Veda, Ingrid, Roma, Haley, Sam, Kira, Mooney, Pudamancer, Kirsten, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Robin, Ursula, Caitlin, Jessica, KJ, Mufflier, Celia, Deborah, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Light Julie, Patrick, Callison, Vampire Antihero, Shelby, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, and Amanda.